What was your message to progressives in there?
Give us some space, please.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was apparently kicked out of a Congressional Progressive Caucus meeting while attempting to persuade progressive Democrats to support the bipartisan infrastructure bill before Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema commit to supporting the Build Back Better agenda. So we'll get to more on this, but there is in fact a video of this. Check it out.
Speaker, the vote's there for a vote this afternoon. What was your message to progressives in there?
Give us some space, please.
Absolutely amazing. She looks pissed, and that was just 10 minutes into the meeting. Now, at the time, before reporters knew why she was leaving, Andrew Solander here is the one that shot the video. He tweeted out saying, Pelosi emerges from the Progressive Caucus meeting without saying a word. But you can see on her face that she was not happy. So the full story broke later from The Uprising here, who writes, multiple sources confirmed to The Uprising that Pelosi was kicked out of the meeting by Progressive Caucus Chairwoman Pramila Jayapal. Quote, she got kicked out and said she was leaving anyway, a Democratic staffer who was granted anonymity to discuss the confidential meeting said of Pelosi. Now, both a representative of Pelosi and Jayapal both deny that that's what happened. But of course, they're going to do that. They're not going to confirm that they had a fight. Of course, they're not going to say that. So they're protecting each other here. But based on sources that were actually in the meeting, yes, Pelosi was kicked out. So a little more here. According to the second staffer, Pelosi probably wanted to take progressives' temperature. However, the staffer said this likely created an awkward situation since progressives typically expect a family discussion within their caucus. Quote, having Nancy or House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer come into that is like having mom or dad show up at your slumber party, the staffer said. It crimps your vibe a bit. Yeah, so I can totally understand the Progressive Caucus there wanted to have their own discussion without having, mom or dad watching over them. And understand why Pelosi was under this kind of pressure. Earlier in the day, Biden had a meeting with the House, basically encouraging them to support the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And there was all this pressure to get this passed before Biden went off to a climate change meeting overseas. And Pelosi as well, to her members, apparently said, quote, don't embarrass the president by voting down the infrastructure bill as he flies overseas. She also said she would put the infrastructure bill on the floor today and hold the vote open to get the bill through. So that was posted at about 11 a.m. Well, did Nancy Pelosi get a vote on the bill today? No. New from me, this is Jake Sherman here, saying the House will vote on a short-term extension of surface transportation authorization tonight. Then they will leave for the weekend and come back next week to consider infrastructure. Meaning that the Progressive Caucus actually held the line and did not said they were not going to support the infrastructure bill, so Pelosi could not bring it to a vote, because Pelosi historically does not bring anything to a vote unless she actually has the votes to pass it. Incredible. So great work here by progressives, but at the same time, the budget is ripped to shreds. I mean, I covered this last night. At this point, there is still universal pre-K in there. There is now hearing covered for seniors, apparently, but dental, vision, that's out of there, as well as everything else I discussed. I mean, we're talking the billionaire tax is out of there. Free college, out of there. Lower prescription drug prices, out of there. I mean, go down the list. Almost everything is ripped out of this bill. It is a joke. So if I were in this caucus, if I were in Democratic Party, I still would not be voting for this bill because of how just completely weak it is. You had this promise initially they fought for 10 trillion. Then, and that was supported by, groups like Sunrise Movement. That's what they were calling for. Then the number was, the actual number that was proposed was 6 trillion. Then that was cut down to 3.5 trillion. That's what they ran with for a while. And now it's down to between 1.5 to 1.7. And as you see, only one side this entire time has been compromising. A true compromise would have been 10 trillion or 5 trillion. Start at 10, go down to 5. That's how you compromise. But they're now down to not even 2 trillion. And it isn't even just about the money. It's about the programs in there, because you can still limit the money that is being spent by limiting the years that these programs are being funded for. But the real issue is that the programs are being completely torn out. And whatever is left in there is just means tested apart from universal pre-K. So it is just a shell of what it used to be. And I see no reason for progressives to support the bipartisan infrastructure bill or the budget. Now, last thing here, maybe this also played into the anger from progressives. The idea here, this is from Greg Sargent, reporting that the idea that Manchin is to blame for killing the billionaire's tax is too convenient. Pelosi privately slammed the proposal hard at a meeting this week, aides tell me, and other Dems are waiting in the cloakroom to kill it with no fingerprints. And that's in the Washington Post. So apparently Nancy Pelosi is the real push behind killing the billionaire tax. Now, I don't think Manchin would have supported it anyway, but still, Pelosi being House Speaker has a little more, I was going to say more power, but really at this point, Manchin has more power than Pelosi does. But regardless, both of them were apparently against it, and Pelosi is the one that pushed to kill it. So that may have also added to the anger from the Progressive Caucus. But regardless, I don't know what to expect from this budget bill. It's going back and forth, and we're going to see next week again. Is anything going to happen? Is anything going to be passed? And really, ultimately, it's not about getting something passed. It's about what is actually passed. Are people being helped with the budget bill? If there is no real substantial change there, and this is the place to do it, trying to pass separate bills for each of these individual items is not going to happen, because you have to get the votes of Manchin and Sinema on board. And the only way you get someone like that on board is if you also agree to pass their corporate giveaway, the infrastructure bill. So that's why there's all this fighting going on over this budget bill, because this is the last hope that Democrats have to pass anything substantial before the midterms, and for people to, for voters to actually feel it. So we're going to have to keep watching what happens with this, and I guess we're going to see maybe next week.